I am here today to interview Jane Oxley, Smokeball's Chief Revenue Officer, and ask her a couple of deep questions about Smokeball's story, our history, and ultimately how she came to building such a successful business globally like Smokeball's.
Ward off the flu with the carbolic Smokeball. Fall ill and claim 100 pounds.
For me and for our audience today, what I'd know they'd love to know more about is how did the idea of Smokeball actually come about between you and Hunter?
The idea of Smokeball came about, I think, because Hunter and I were working together at the time, and I think we had a vision for just a slightly different workplace on two levels from where we were at the time. So we both were working in legal tech at a great company, but I think we had a vision for where we could take the product and also where we could take the culture. And I think Hunter and I are both very passionate about company culture and wanting to show that you can build a great workplace that actually has great results. Because I think, and maybe I feel that has changed a little bit in recent years, but at the time I felt like there was kind of, this rhetoric that you had to kind of treat your staff or treat your clients a certain way in order to build a big profitable business. And we were like, I don't know. I think we can do this in a way where everyone wins. You create wins all across the board, and that's really what we set out to do, and hopefully we've achieved it.
I think you have, absolutely. And then what about the name Smokeball? So I think it's always a name that a lot of people who've studied legal, some people resonate, and it's like the inside goss. They kind of go, I know what you're thinking here. But from your perspective, like what was it that inspired you guys to create the name and come up with the name Smokeball?
So we wanted to find a name that was memorable,
Tick.
unique, and had something to do with the legal profession. So I actually found the name Smokeball because I studied law for 2 minutes and learnt about the case, and I liked that it sounded a bit out there as well, and there's a lot of legal products that have very dull legal names, and they can be great products.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I thought that we could do something a bit better, and it was thinking of like the website, thinking of the whole thing. So that's how it came about. Was a carbolic Smokeball company case from the 1800s, very well known in Australia and the UK. Some US lawyers, I think, study it as well, but not everyone. So, and it is definitely polarizing. Yeah. I once spoke to a branding agency who were like, well, the first thing we need to change is your name. And I was like, oh, okay. And I have had clients say they love it, and I've also had clients say they hate it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's not going anywhere. It's part of our identity.
It's not going
It's
anywhere.
who we are. How could you change this?
No, it's not changing. When the guy said he wanted to change it, I was like, goodbye.
Yeah, it's like maybe you're not for us. Maybe we're not the right kind of relationship.
Let's talk about other parts of it.
So it's based on a famous case law that you study in your first sort of years of law. And so have you found that you've been explaining that story for obviously the 25 years that you've been involved with Smokeball?
To a degree, most lawyers actually remember it once you prompt them a little bit. They go, oh, yes. There's like the snail in the bottle case, I think, Donahue and Stevenson, and the carbolic Smokeball company. They're like two of the sort of iconic cases you learn very early in the day. So people do remember the name. There is the fact that the case was actually like the carbolic Smokeball didn't work. So that was a bit of a cause of conjecture early when we were talking about the name. So it was like, should we call the company after a thing that didn't work? And we're like, people have forgotten that. And I don't usually talk about it. Probably shouldn't have talked about it. But
I think you've proven that wrong. I think you've proven it wrong. You've taken inspiration from the name and what it stands for.
Smokeball definitely works.
Yes,
there are
definitely.
thousands of firms using
I agree.
Smokeball
I
every
think you
day.
can attest to that. Absolutely. Yes. No, I agree. No, that's really cool. I think it's just cool just to understand the name and the story and ultimately why it's been it's a huge part of who we are. So I think it's really cool to be able to tell that story. So then what was the approach that you and Bart and Hunter really took when it came to actually building Smokeball globally? Because obviously Smokeball now exists in US, Australia, and now the UK as well. And ultimately it's been a very methodical sort of approach and how you've scaled the business over the years. If you were to think back in terms of like what your approach was and what your goals were, what was that approach that the three of you took in building Smokeball globally?
Look, I think it has changed over time.
Yep.
we definitely wanted to be big in the US. That was kind of the starting point, because we'd sort of seen that there was some very good players in the Australian market that were doing very well in practice management. We thought, you know what, let's go to another market. Yeah. So that was the early goal. And the US market it's a hard market to operate in. But now we've got lots of wonderful clients there, which is fantastic. Yeah. But, roll back to 2013, a lot of people weren't talking about document automation or productivity tools, automation tools generally, like they are today. Yeah. So I'd say that we definitely knew that we wanted to build a worldwide product. We definitely knew that we wanted to get a very large footprint. Yeah. I think we were a little torn between wanting to be the product that was very light and could be everything to everyone, or a deeper functionality product. And the reality of Smokeball is that we probably sit somewhere in the middle. We do have deep functionality and it's a robust product while being easy to use. So I think we always had global ambitions. We started globally. We started selling in the US first. But obviously Australia has done very, very well for us and continues to, which is very exciting. And now we're moving into the UK. So those early plans are all coming to fruition now. It feels like a long time. That's awesome. But it's very exciting. So we've still got a lot of growth ahead of us. I think other markets that we could go into worldwide as well. That's awesome.
And I think particularly for Australian headquartered organisation and also Australian-based founders, to launch in the US first is a trailblazing moment in so many ways because it's so different and so unique. I think you hear of a lot of Aussie startups who will start in Australia and then tackle the US market. Yeah. For people who don't know that story, like what was the rationale and the reason beyond, as you said, Australia being so competitive and already having some good established players already here? Why the US? Because you did it the tough way, first go, which is super inspiring. So why the US first?
The US market, when we went and saw law firms in Chicago, which is where we ended up, we saw that they were doing work that was very, familiar to us. So they were working in real estate law or conveyancing law. They were working in family law. And look, I think that honestly is the story of smaller law firms around the world. So we saw a lot that was familiar, but we also saw that most firms were really only benefiting from time and billing software. So when you ask them what software they had, like were they using software, they're like, yeah, we use something for their billing basically, or Word or Outlook. And so we saw that there was a real gap in the US market, and that particularly in Chicago, there were sort of familiar structures in these businesses that we could talk to. And again, I think now we've realized that it is, around the world, smaller law firms are quite similar. They're all supporting their local communities, helping everyone deal with the mess of life. But that was why we did the US. And I do think, it's definitely what's that saying where you do the hard thing first? It's
eat the frog.
Eat the frog. Like we definitely ate the frog.
You sure
with
did.
The US, right? Because everything else has seemed much easier afterwards. But I think, looking at it 12 years on or whatever it is, it definitely was not a bad thing to do that. It forced us to level up in so many ways. And I think in some of our operations, it helped us as well because seeing how US businesses adopt tech to help them sell or onboard. We were probably a little bit ahead of the curve of some Australian headquartered businesses at the time, which I still see to this day when we're talking about, revenue architecture and all those wonderful things. We're using tools that, sort of US tech tends to use more than Australian tech even.
That's awesome. And I think it is, as you said, like, eating the frog and tackling the hard things first. Like obviously trying to help then localize Smokeball in all those different states. In America, I know just through the team challenge, it's inspiring in terms of the amount of effort that has gone into really localizing a product for a market as big and diverse as the US, and obviously not without its challenges as well. What have been your biggest learnings and aha moments, particularly when you've looked at launching Smokeball in each different market? What have been those biggest learnings and aha moments over the years?
There are many. I would say that looking at how you get started in a market is definitely a lot about your early adopters and finding those people who really support you along the way. And extending from that is really just how you focus generally, like focusing on a narrow audience. And I think from there, like where do you go from there? Don't try and go from zero to hero. That's been a huge thing. I think there's also like how you operationalize your business. I think we made a lot of mistakes, right, along the way. And for example, you know, we started to sell quite well in the US, and we hired a lot of salespeople without building that kind of foundation of process and tools to train them and onboard them and enable them. So there's a lot of learnings all the way through from like the market that you're serving and trying to find the right kind of niche for you to get started to how you run the business. And, you know, the trickiest thing about doing this is that you're building the plane as you're flying it, right? And retrospect is a really great thing. So I think for me, there are many lessons, and if I could go back in time, I would probably, you know, go a bit slower to go faster at times, partly my personality. But
You're like, run.
Yeah, I'm like, run,
let's
go. But sometimes you need your little team. Yeah. You need your team beside you.
Whoa,
to be like, let's get this stuff in a row first, so that when we hire these people, we can do the right things. Because, you know, anyone who worked in tech in the last 10 years knows that there was a period of time where there was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And with a lot of money, it's tempting to just like
keep going.
Run. And so many learnings along the way.
And it's hard because I think so many, and obviously like Smokeball is definitely now, you know, a scale up, you know, we're sort of, you know, around that sort of 280, 300 odds, you know, sort of staff globally. And I think definitely, you know, definitely shook the startup kind of, you know, sort of, I don't want to say shackles, but that moniker of being, you know, named a startup. And I think it is really interesting just to hear you sort of share those learnings, because there'll be so many people out there just listening kind of go, how did they do it? Like, how did they take it from zero to a business that's, you know, turning over
many millions.
Exactly, millions and millions. And but also, as you said earlier, it's like thousands and thousands of users and law firms like loving and creating those sort of raving fans around the globe. That's probably an interesting question. You mentioned like those early adopters and really holding those, you know, holding early adopters close who want to be part of your sort of, you know, your hype squad or your success story, particularly from a client perspective. Have you sort of worked out, or have you thought about, you know, how you create those raving fans? You know, you've obviously seen different unique characteristics potentially from, you know, clients in Australia or clients in the US or clients in the UK, and trying to find those raving fans can be really tricky. Have you got any sort of, you know, insights or anything around what you've seen and what's worked from that perspective?
I honestly think that it goes all the way to the top, to your culture. It's actually who you are. Because, you know, like our number one core value at Smokeball is caring is not optional, and that flows through every single interaction that we have with every single client that we have. And, you know, we hire on culture. We fire on culture. Caring is not optional sounds soft and fluffy. It's not. It isn't at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you need to actually do it. It's an action. So I think building raving fans is an output of doing those things well, because it's how you build your product. It's how you talk to every single client that you have. Like, they feel that because it's a real thing.
I agree.
So I honestly think there's not a shortcut to building raving fans. It's actually in the micro moments of every single day that you work.
Yeah. It's showing up. I think you think about all the client conversations, and obviously you and I have hundreds, if not thousands, of client conversations, whether it be at events or just, you know, in person, whether it be, you know, prospects or clients or whatever the case may be. And I think when you speak to a client or a prospect, they know that Smokeball is different because we do care. And exactly what you just said, that caring is not optional. I think you can't, well, I know that you can't fake that level of authenticity. And those people that try to fake it, you know, as you said, are exposed, and it's, you know, it shows up either whether in your business dealings or your interactions. But I genuinely believe that our clients can see the difference when they're working with Smokeball as a whole, because they know that we're different. They know that we go the extra mile. They know that we care, and you know, at risk of being edited, they know we give a shit. And I think that to me is what sets Smokeball apart. And I think kudos to you and Hunter for creating that culture, because, you know, that you hear the statement of, you know, the fish rots from the head.
Yes.
But ultimately, you know, you set that culture from the top as well. And you guys have actually role modeled that. So kudos to you. Well done. Cool. So you talked a little bit earlier about, some different things that you would do differently if you had your time again. If you had to pick one thing, because over the years there's probably plenty of little things, but if you think about if you're giving some advice to someone who's out there watching you and going, oh, this is a really inspiring story, what's the one thing that you would do differently?
Okay, I'm going to go on. I'm not going to do one. I'm going to do two.
Go for it. I'll let you.
The first one is there's been a couple of times where I haven't trusted my gut when I'm hiring people. Yeah. And if you hire someone who does not fulfill the culture that you work in, they can actually do a lot of damage to your company very, very quickly.
Agree.
So I think there's a couple of missteps that we've made along the way. And look, we tried to rectify them as quickly as we could, but in a couple of instances it definitely had some fallout on the team, which I regret. Yeah. I'd say the other one is changing too many things at the same time. I think there's been a couple of times in our history where we've, and it's always well-intentioned, right? But if you have, it's like any group of people, if you change too many variables at once, they freak out.
It's change fatigue.
Yeah, they
absolutely.
freak out. And so, we and also, in the science experiment of life, if something goes wrong out of that when you change a lot of things at once, you have no idea what it was.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I tend to run things full steam ahead, but I've learned a lot around, being more careful with the changes, still change things, still like challenge the status quo all the time and try and do great things, but just be a little bit more measured about how you're doing it. When not too many at once, and also communication, right? Just being so careful. Yeah. And I tend to over communicate now, like, especially if you've got a business with, we have different global locations, but even if people are working from home, that is a different location.
Totally.
Everyone needs to be kept in the loop. Otherwise it breeds uncertainty and all that back chat of people who don't understand why something's happening. And again, that's builds a negative culture in itself. Yeah. So
create their own context. In the absence of context, they can create their own context, which may or may not be accurate in that sense. So no, that's really great advice, I think. And I've definitely seen us over the years go through those sorts of changes where, as you said, it's like full steam ahead and it's like, go. And it's just like, let's just chill for a little bit. Not chill, but just pull back a little bit.
Pause for a little while.
Yeah. And it's healthy because
and
I think that we've got similar leadership styles where we're like, go. And we've got two of us going. It's like, hang on a minute. And I think it's helpful just to be able to balance and to sort of balance that. And I think it is a good, it's just a good reflection point, I think, as well, to sort of go, you can do everything, but you don't necessarily need to do everything at the same time.
You can do everything. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just timing it and sequencing it more than anything. Exactly. Cool. So then if you were to go back in time to Jane of a few years back, what advice, and I'll let you pick whichever time period you want to go back to, but what advice would you give to yourself if you went back in time, and let's just say maybe before starting Smokeball? Is there any advice that you'd give to Jane Oxley back in the day?
I would probably say be a bit more patient with people.
Okay.
I've definitely become more patient with people in the last few years. And again, like I just sometimes if I've got a vision for something and it's not happening, I can be impatient.
Yep.
And I've got a lot better with that in the last probably 10 years.
Awesome.
But before that, I was too impatient. And I think, part of it is that communication and bringing people along for the ride. And sometimes, if you've got something in your head that you're like, I want to do this, like, let's do this, you can forget to get all that, use the Dumbledore thing, get it all out of your head so everyone else can see it and feel like they're part of the thing. Yeah. So I think, honestly, patience would be something I would be like. Being a
parent of three beautiful girls, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe that's giving you the patience as well.
Yeah, helps you changes be more patient.
Definitely. Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, that's cool. And I think it's a good thing because I think you're right. Like you see ourselves as we go through our journey, careers, and when you're in your 20s, you're, one sort of identity of someone, then your 30s, it's different. And then, as we progress, ages, but, it obviously changes us who we are. So I think that patience is it's a really cool insight because it just takes time, obviously, to sort of find, but it's good advice to give to your former self. Well
I
said.
probably wouldn't listen.
Well, that's okay. Well, at least you know, right?
Yeah,
so you know yourself well. At least you know, if
Yeah.
you're looking back, or to anybody listening in, that's probably the one thing. Be patient, and good things do take time ultimately.
Yes.
So it's really good advice. Okay, so final question. All right, for me today. You've had an amazing career in legal tech. You've spent your entire career in legal tech, and it's been super, super successful. You built an amazing company that we're all super proud to be a part of. As part of that one final sort of thing, what are you most proud of in your legal tech career?
Can
I make her cry? That's not my intention.
I would say the team that we have and the people that we've developed. I think with Smokeball, we've kind of built something where people want to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm really, really proud of that. I think that is it's a real tangible thing, and seeing people grow and flourish and, find alternate careers. It's they're some of my favorite stories, honestly. People who come in, as like an SDR, like a cold call or something like that, and then they end up doing something completely different. Or, Ruchi came in. She was a lawyer already, so she was accomplished as a human. But she came in as an account manager, and now she's the president of the US business, right? So I love seeing those growth stories, and I also genuinely love that we help so many small law firms. Like I think I worked in a small law firm before I was in legal tech, and they are out there helping our local communities every day. They truly are. And it's honestly a really hard job. Yeah. And I truly believe that we make a difference to them all day, every day. So seeing us grow and work with more law firms around the world, I can see us actually helping them serve their communities better, which is something that I feel great about.
That's awesome. Definitely making an impact. Amazing. Well, Jane, thank you so much for our time on the couch today. It's been lovely getting to know you more and having some time just getting to know some deep questions thrown at you. But thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Pleasure.
Thanks.